for the redemption of Jerusalem. The name of this sermon is called Joseph, Special Child, but the same. Now, of course, the special child was Jesus, and even though he was special, and his parent, every child is special. Anna, my little granddaughter, she's special. But the point is, Jesus was exceptionally special. But everything that was happening made him appear to be the same. God was somehow looking after this so that to the casual observer, this would be the child that's just the same as any other. Now there's two words I'm thinking of, average and extraordinary. Average is just nobody notices. Extraordinary, everyone notices, everyone takes account of it. Now, there's a man who builds cars, and I've watched some of his videos on YouTube. It's great. He has a business called Derelict, and you know that derelict usually means something left out for too long and not looked after. And what he does is he goes and finds cars from the 40s and the 50s that have been left out in the sun for so long that the paint's all gone and the surface of the car is all rusty. But he picks them in a place where there's not a lot of salt and stuff, so the body is still good, but it looks like it's been in the junkyard for 50 years. And so he takes this car, and he takes it apart, he takes the body off, and he builds a brand new frame. And he builds new suspension, and puts an engine, say from a Corvette, and the car will handle like a sports car. It'll go really fast, but if you looked at it, it's ordinary. It's so ordinary that no one would look at it twice. But that's not the point. It costs $250,000 to $500,000 for him to do this. And he does an exceptional job. It's beautiful in the details that you have to look close at. But here's what the people that pay $500,000 for him to do it, they want people to notice. They want you to walk up and you see this car and it's not special, but there's something about it that is special, and you get to explain how special it really is. Well, Mary and Joseph, as hard as they would try, couldn't manage anything special for Jesus. They didn't manage a special birth. They didn't manage anything special, and it seemed everything was working against them to have it special. There's a woman from she's probably long dead now, but her name was Vijaya Pandey. Now, I probably pronounced her name wrong, but that's okay because she's dead and she won't know. But the point is, she was from India, and she was an acquaintance and a friend of Gandhi. And she was all part of all of that whole system of India becoming independent. And if you watch the movie Gandhi, you remember the people, Gandhi's whole idea was he was going to work on the good graces of the people of the United Kingdom, and they would be ashamed of what was going on. And these people would line up, and they'd step up, and they'd get smacked and knocked down, and people would haul them away, and the next person would, and she was all part of that. And she was now the High Commissioner for India to the United Kingdom. High position in the government, and sadness came. Her husband died. And because she had no son, the laws of India said that if you had no husband and you had no son, as a woman you were not a person. And you could claim nothing from the estate. And now all the things that she worked for, her home, her property, would now belong to the law, according to the law, to the next of kin. Not her, because she wasn't a person. And so her brother-in-law got the house, got the property. She got nothing. Her daughters. And she was, besides going through the pain of losing her husband, she was going through the shame of not being a person and not being able to do anything under the law. And she was, for India, going to America to go to the UN. And it was an important job, and she went to Gandhi before she left. And Gandhi said to her, "Have you talked to the family?" And she said no. Well, she was upset with the family, naturally. And this is what Gandhi said. He said to her, "You will go, and you will say goodbye because courtesy and decency demands it. This is still important in the country of India." And she said to him, "No, I will not go, not even for you." And he said to her, how can you, when the anger in your heart is not hurting anyone else but yourself, you're going to another country and you're going to take the anger with you. You're not going to be any better. And she couldn't let this go. She kept thinking about what he said. And so she called her brother-in-law and said, "I'm going to America. We need to meet before we go." And so she went to say goodbye. And as soon as she arrived, within 5 minutes, she said, "I saw everyone go, this had to be done." But she wasn't going to do it. And they couldn't do it. And she said, it was as if somebody took a weight off my shoulders. I let all that go. And she said, that was the most important thing I did. She learned from that. She discovered that he was right. And the anger you hold in your heart doesn't hurt anyone but yourself. Now, Joseph and Mary probably had a lot of things to be offended over. They could have been offended because the slowness of their relatives, because he went to Bethlehem because he was of that lineage. He would have family there. He would expect they would step up quickly and help them. And maybe they didn't step up very quickly. She might be angry with all sorts of things. The fact that God didn't make this path easy. And you can have an endless list of offenses. Now, as we look at these 4 points, I want you to think of, can you come up with any, if this was you and you were part of this story, could you come up with any offenses that you would be mad about? Well, the first point is, yes, we have to cut God. Now, Luke 2:21 says, when the 8 days had passed before his circumcision, and his name was Jesus. But the point of this is that before his circumcision. Now, they would, if you know what circumcision is, it's an operation that on the 8th day every Jewish boy would have. And you can imagine Mary's thinking, this beautiful little boy I'm holding in my hands, it's now 4 days, it's now 3 days, it's now 2 days till this happens. And we looked this up. And who does this operation on the little boy? Well, it's usually the father. Sometimes it's a rabbi, but usually it's the father. And you can imagine Mary's holding baby Jesus in her arms, and he's beautiful. And it's the 8th day, and Joseph, with his rough carpenter hands, has got a rock in his hand that he's chipped to make it as sharp as he can. And he says, you have to hand me Jesus, I'm going to circumcise him. And Mary's not going to want to do that. I talked to Crystal, and I was telling her, and she said, Dad, I might let you do it, but I wouldn't let Mike do it. You see, the point is, if you were a dad and this was your first son, where did you get practice doing this? You put an ad, you say, well, in 8 days I have to circumcise my son, so I'm looking for Gentile volunteers who will let me do it on you. I don't think that's going to happen. Nobody's going to volunteer to be the guinea pig for the first 2 or 3 operations. And Mary's going to think, you could have done this better. And now you're handing me back a baby who you've hurt, and he's crying, and I have to make this right. And men do that. They make a horrible botched job and then hand it back to the women to look after. And every time he pees in his diaper, it's going to hurt like crazy, sting. It's going to be a month. Well, Jesus did this. He allowed himself to be cut, to be fully a part of Abraham's race. Some people have said the only man-made thing in heaven will be the marks in Jesus' hands and his feet from crucifixion. But there will be one more thing, the mark of circumcision. God came, God sent his son to be circumcised by a carpenter man with a rock. Well, the second point is, yes, the firstborn belonged to God. In verse 22 and 23 it says, and when the days for their purification according to the law of Moses were complete, they brought him up to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. Now, when the Passover happened in Egypt and all the firstborn died, God said, I'm going to get you to mark on your doorpost, and that's going to purchase your firstborn. And after they went across on their trip, across the Red Sea, God said, all of those firstborn belong to me, but I'm going to trade them for the Levites. And he said, from now on, every firstborn of sheep, every firstborn of cows and donkeys, they all belong to me. And if you wanted to purchase back your donkey, you bought it back. And if you want to purchase back your child, which of course you would, everyone did, your firstborn male, it said, it doesn't give a total. It says just don't be stingy. I tried to find what the prescribed sacrifice for the firstborn male was, and I couldn't find it. And so they were coming to do what was required by the law. And I thought to myself, they have no money. We know that because the next part is where they sacrifice for her purification. And it says in the scriptures, you bring a lamb and a pigeon. Or, if you have no money, you bring 2 pigeons or 2 turtle doves. That's the poor person's sacrifice. And so, if they had very little, what can they give for Jesus? What can they give for Jesus? Well, do you remember in 1 Samuel, the story of Samuel? I like this story. But 1 Samuel 1, verse 6, this is about Hannah. Her rival, however, would provoke her bitterly to irritate her because the Lord had closed her womb. It happened year after year, as often as she went to the house of the Lord, she would provoke her, so she wept and would not eat. Then Elkanah, her husband, said to her, Hannah, why do you weep, and why do you not eat, and why is your heart sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? You know, that always sounded to me like cold comfort when he said that. No, I want a son. Why do you think I'm crying? I know you're a good husband, but I still want a son. So she said to God, in verse 11, she made a vow and said, O Lord of hosts, if you will indeed look on the affliction of your maidservant, and remember me, and not forget your maidservant, but will give your maidservant a son, then I will give him to the Lord all the days of his life, and a razor shall never come on his head. And then on verse 28, it says, So I have also dedicated him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he is dedicated to the Lord. And he worships the Lord there. Now, you see, they may have given the sacrifice, but Hannah was giving Samuel to the Lord. In the same way, God was saying to the entire world, us included, I'm giving you my son. I'm not buying him back and keeping him. I'm giving him to you so that he can be your sacrifice, so that he can die on the cross and be your sacrifice. I'm giving him to you. Well, the third thing is the mother of the king gets a pair of turtle doves. In Luke 20, verse 23, it says, as I just read, every firstborn male that opens the womb shall be called holy to the Lord. In verse 24, and to offer a sacrifice according to what was said in the law of the Lord, a pair of turtle doves and 2 young pigeons. Now, think of this. Do you remember that song? I love this song. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world. Well, that's Jesus. He's coming, and they're going to offer a sacrifice. I'm purchasing the man, the child that has the whole world in his hands, and I haven't got much to purchase him. And how bad you would feel that I haven't really got much. And it looks like I'm really stingy, but I haven't. It isn't. This has not gone well, this whole coming to Bethlehem and staying in a stable and trying to find a place to live and not having very much to start with, and now I've got 2 turtle doves. And have you ever been somewhere where pride has come upon you and you haven't wanted to let everyone know you had nothing? This happens in Hollywood. I don't know how often, but it happens often enough that it's a story. Is that people become famous. They have a part in a television show or a movie, and they've made a lot of money, and they've spent a lot of money. And now they're sleeping in their car, and they're saving their money so that they can appear to be rich in front of people, because they have to keep up appearances. Because they're famous and rich and powerful and all of those things. And pride is saying, and I thought to myself, Mary would be saying to herself with the 2 turtle doves, look, we're not that poor. It's just we've had a hard run these last 40 days. And we do have, and Joseph's a really good carpenter, and now I'm appearing before these people who are judging me as a poor person that should have more. For the number 4 is these 2 humble people are confirming that this man is special. Finally, somebody has noticed that my baby is special. It's not ordinary, he's extraordinary. In verse 25 it says, there was a man in Jerusalem whose name was Simeon. And this man was righteous and devout, looking for the consolation of Israel. And the Holy Spirit was upon him. And it had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not see death before he had seen the Lord's Christ. And the Spirit came to him and convinced him to go to the temple. And he saw Jesus, and he held Jesus in his arms, and he says, now I can die. I've seen the salvation. My eyes have seen your salvation. And I thought to myself, was this guy special? Yes, he was, of course, special, because it says he was devout and righteous. But was he special for anybody else's eyes? He wasn't a priest. He wasn't even a Levite. He wasn't a rabbi. He was just a devout man who came to the temple often. And what about Anna? Anna had been a person, a widow, no children, no family, no one to care for her. She lived in the temple all the time. She would become invisible. She's one of these decorative plants people see all the time and forget to notice. But these are the two people that God picked to come to Mary and Joseph and say, this is a special child. You know, see, they weren't powerful in the temple power structure. They weren't in the religious community. They weren't powerful. In the city of Jerusalem, they weren't powerful. In the world, they weren't powerful. But all of these people, all of the world should recognize that Jesus has come. And he is the one event in all the world that overshadows every other event. Well, we're all sinful, fallen people, and there's no reason to expect that Joseph and Mary weren't sinful and fallen people, even though God picked them special because they were such devout people, the same as he picked Simeon and Anna. But they were still fallen people. And when people are in stressful situations, your best is not shown. Just like the woman from India. She was in a stressful situation. She was probably a lovely woman, but now her husband had died, and the law said she wasn't a real person, and they'd taken her property, and she and her children, her two girls, were destitute, with nothing except the job they had, and that's why she said, no, I won't, not even for you, Gandhi. You see, when we're in a stressful situation, and the whole world is come up against us, we get angry. And we don't behave the way we're supposed to. And sometimes, I'm going to shock you now, sometimes when everything is going good, we still get angry about something. There was a serviceman. This happened this past week. There was a serviceman. And he works for this company, like he's his own business, but he comes in and he does work for this company. And he gets 95% of their business. If you divide it up where he gets his money, this company might represent 20%. That's a big chunk as a businessman. And he was called in and he said, we need you to come quickly to do this repair. Well, I can't come until maybe after 11, maybe not even then. And they said, that's okay, we'll get someone else. And so they did. But he got really angry. And he went on Facebook that night and he typed a whole lot of mean stuff. And 5 minutes after it was posted, the company saw that. And we don't know yet. He doesn't know yet what will become of that. When you say mean things to somebody who's 20% of your business, and they may just decide, well, we don't want your business anymore. We're not going to call you. You're done. And all for, if you took the 95%, now it's 94 3/4. It's nothing. He may have killed the goose that laid the golden egg just for one phone call and put him off. And he was mad. Now, we don't know what Mary and Joseph's, what all their problems. We don't know because there's such a small account. We can recognize from those things that there's some things that would make them be difficult. And there was lots more probably that we don't know in those 40 days. From that stable to the sacrifice. And the sacrifice, that there was a bare minimum to cover the law. There's a man that, he's a pastor, and his name is Tim Challis, and he wrote a blog called Believing the Worst of Those Who Love Me Most. And he told this in the blog. It's just short. It's a really good thing to read. It's really interesting. But he said, my wife, who's been married to me for 15 years, is a wonderful woman. She's supported me in my bungles as a pastor. She's supported me in all of everything. And I don't know if I could come up with a better meaning that she has done the best of any possible one. He said that in a second, in a flash, I can be angry with her because she does something. She took the last piece of pie, and I didn't get mine at dinner because it was a phone call, and she knew I wanted that pie, and now I'm mad at her. I'm angry. Or maybe she made arrangements for us as a family to do something, and I hate going on those spinny rides because I throw up, and now I got to go to... Or 100 things. She knows I don't like my socks starched or whatever. You think of it. You can come up with 1,000 things. Krista was sitting with Anna, and Anna was being as cute as any child can be. When it's happy, and she said, I put that new bib on you, and you drooled and missed it, and now it's on my leg. Well, Anna didn't mean to drool on her leg. I was holding her earlier, and she got this yellow stuff came through a diaper. She didn't mean for that to happen. Why would I be mad at her for doing that? But we can do that in an instant. We can get angry with people for little tiny offenses. And we don't know if Mary's, when she was giving the sacrifice and pride reared its ugly head and said, look, I don't want to be seen as a poor person. That's not who we are. I don't want to be seen as... You get mad at little things. Now, God calls us to put aside those little things, just like Gandhi said to this woman, you've got to let this go because you don't want to hold anger in your heart. In 1 Corinthians 13 is the love chapter. And in verse 7 it says, bear all things, hope all things, believe all things, endure all things. It's calling us to, in love, recognize that sometimes people will do things that really make us angry, but they didn't sin, they didn't do it on purpose, they're completely, have no idea. What do you mean I did something wrong? Yes, you offended me by having that pie. Well, the point was that we get angry. But the Bible says in love you need to endure all things. Well, there'll be another pie come down the road. You see, we sometimes judge people too harshly for little small offenses. And sometimes they are real offenses. But just like Joseph had rough hands, and he was taking baby Jesus in his hands, the world is the way it is, and we have to understand that. This is what Philippians 4:8 says. Finally, brethren, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good repute, if there is any excellency, as if there is anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. And so if we can say to ourselves, look, for the most part, my spouse, my friends, my Christian family, they get it right most of the time. And I'm going to recognize that this one time, when they've gone off the rails is not, and it's my job now to step up and say, I'm going to bear all things, hope all things, believe all things, endure all things. Because that's what love does. And I suspect Mary and Joseph did that because God was wise in who he picked to look after the Son, the Son of God, to raise him as their own. And recognize that everything would be hard. But they were still, I think they would do these things and I think that's what we're called to do. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you for loving us. Thank you that you know everything we do. You know when we just get mad, and you forgive us. And not only do you forgive us, you sent your Son Jesus to die on the cross to give us a way of salvation that, in spite of